Hey everybody, happy Monday. For once coming at you on a Monday and not a Wednesday. So, my name is Maria Jacobs and this is my story. I have written a book with a working title of Grateful, Faith, Healing, and the Gift of Music. But there's a lot more to come where that's concerned. The title is changing and my story is about overcoming bipolar disorder and living a beautiful life today in remission. And others out there who are still struggling real hard, I want them to know that there's hope of coming out on the other side. But if you've experienced any pain, any struggle, I hope you'll give my story your ear. There's a lot in here. My story really resides where pain and fear meets inspiration and aspiration. So with that, this is the third or fourth video installment. I've read you part of the prologue, part of the preface, and part of chapter 1. So this is part of chapter 2. At the onset of my disease, I met with kind of an abusive boyfriend. So I'm going to read you a little bit about where things began. While I was in college the first time at Ohio State University, just before some of the greatest turmoil in my life began, I met someone who would become my second boyfriend, and with whom I would have a very difficult breakup. I was very taken with him early on. I quickly and out of nowhere broke up with my first boyfriend of 2 years, just to be with this new love interest. My first boyfriend was crushed, and that made me feel horrible, brought up a lot of emotion. It was such a rapid decision on my part, I literally pulled the old cut and run, only to find out that this new boyfriend had many problems of his own. They were really invisible to me initially because love is truly blind, and I was completely infatuated with this young man. In the beginning, he brought me flowers, he took me to concerts, he told me I was beautiful. It was intoxicating. I'd never experienced anything like that quite the way that I did with him. Later, however, he became emotionally abusive, and his hurtful, sarcastic comments had me believing there was something wrong with me. I took everything he said to heart, a broken heart at that. He ridiculed my faith, the shape of my body, and pretty much diminished anything that was important to me. He was especially diminutive about my music. I so wanted to please him. I thought I must have been doing something terribly wrong to cause him to treat me this way, and I blamed myself. He was not a Christian, and back then I was very devoted to my church. I was confused about loving someone who was of a different faith practice than me. And when I tried to talk to him about it, he shut down emotionally, except for the very mean, sarcastic comments he managed to squeak out. Now, in his defense, I imagine this was a difficult breakup and painful for him too. But we were young, and we had no idea how to handle this kind of conflict. So before we officially broke up, he started seeing a mutual friend. It was summer now, and we were all performers at an outdoor theme park. We were together all the time. I could not separate myself from any of this painful situation. And though they were trying to hide their budding relationship from me, our fellow performers found out and could not keep the secret. The news got back to me, and all I could feel was a sadness I'd never encountered before and a profound despair. To make matters worse, our so-called friends, in their infinite compassion, made jokes, and they had fun with all of us. They even put on a Saturday Night Live style skit at a party, portraying each of us as characters and acting out our entire love triangle. Ouch. That was excruciating. I put on a strong face in public, but I was devastated and sobbing uncontrollably when I was alone. I was in my late adolescence, and it was my first real heartbreak. I did not have the emotional constitution to handle any of it. Now, I had reason to be sad, but the doctors said the depression was the rearing of bipolar disorder's ugly head. I couldn't pull myself out of that sadness, and I became episodic. The situation was a trigger, but not the cause. And by now, my life had changed, and I was no longer myself. I enjoyed nothing but singing, which became like therapy. There were emotional ramifications from this breakup. I would still see him quite a bit on campus. Rather than lighting up when I walked in the room like he used to, he was dark, negative, and avoid me. I hope that my story can touch you in some way. I think everyone knows pain. Please remember that my story meets where pain and fear intersect with aspiration and inspiration. Thanks for listening.